My hands trembled as I quietly wiped the table that evening, pretending I didn't hear it. Again. She does the chores so well. His mother smirked, looking right at me. Like a maid should. And he, my own husband, just laughed. Not out of discomfort, not out of surprise. He laughed like it was a joke he agreed with. My heart cracked, not because of her words, but because of his silence. His laugh was louder than any insult his mother could throw at me. I stood there, still as stone, while they chatted about dinner like nothing happened, like I wasn't even a person, just part of the furniture. But inside, something changed. I felt a switch flip. I decided this would be the last time they laughed at my pain. I cleaned the kitchen quietly. I served them tea with a calm smile. I said nothing. Not a word. Because revenge is quiet when it's real. That night, after everyone went to sleep, I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I packed away my tears and picked up my phone. I called my lawyer. It took only one sentence. "I'm ready. Start the papers." As I spoke, my voice was steady. Steady in a way it had never been before. This was no longer about being loved. This was about being respected. For years I cooked their meals, washed their clothes, and stood by him when we had nothing. I built this home with my bare hands and my full heart. But to them, I was the maid, easy to use, easier to insult. The next morning, I placed breakfast on the table one last time. His mother ignored me. He scrolled on his phone. I waited for that moment. When he looked at me and asked, "What's wrong with you today?" I smiled gently. "Nothing," I said. "But soon everything will be different." Before leaving, I placed an envelope right next to his coffee. Inside, it wasn't a letter. It was the beginning of the end. Divorce papers, asset division, proof of every sacrifice I made and every insult they threw. My lawyer made sure every word was sharp enough to cut deeper than their laughter. He ran after me, panic filling his voice. "Why are you doing this?" I turned slowly, looked him in the eye, and answered, "Because when your mother called me the maid, you laughed. You showed me exactly what I am to you. And now I'll show you what life is without me." His mother stood behind him, silent for once. No insults, no orders, only fear. I walked away with my dignity, my name, and a heart no longer begging for love from people who never deserved it. And that, right there, was my revenge. Not loud, not cruel, just final. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is not destroying someone, it's simply leaving them to live without you. The moment she stood in that dining room, cloth in hand, and heard her mother-in-law call her the maid, something inside her shifted. It wasn't just the insult that stung, it was the sound of her husband laughing right beside it. The man she loved, the one she sacrificed years for, didn't defend her. He didn't flinch. He didn't hold her hand under the table and whisper, "Ignore her." He laughed. That single moment, filled with silent humiliation, turned into the beginning of her strength. She felt the sharp pain of betrayal, and yet she didn't scream. She didn't demand an apology. She simply stood there, frozen outside but burning inside. That day, she realized the most dangerous kind of hurt isn't loud and dramatic. It's quiet. It melts into the heart slowly like ice and turns into resolve. She remembered everything she did for this family. The mornings she cooked before the sun rose, the nights she stayed awake comforting him when he failed at work, the money she saved quietly when they could barely pay rent. She was never the maid. She was the foundation. But in that one moment, they reduced her to nothing, and what hurt the most was that he allowed it. No, he encouraged it with his laughter. That's when her tears dried before they even reached her eyes. She decided that she would not cry over people who found her pain amusing. She didn't react because she understood something powerful. Rage that explodes is easy to ignore, but rage that stays silent becomes unforgettable. Silence was her first step toward reclaiming her dignity. At that dinner table, she was no longer the same woman who tolerated disrespect for the sake of peace. She became someone who saw the truth clearly. Love without respect is just imprisonment with prettier walls. Every insult she swallowed over the years suddenly felt heavier. The mockery, the ignored efforts, the cold glances, they all connected in her head. She didn't want to win an argument. She wanted to win her life back. So she kept her lips sealed, even when her heart begged her to shout. She continued serving dinner that night, but not because she accepted her role. She did it because she knew it would be the last time. Every step she took in that kitchen, every plate she placed on the table, was no longer out of love, it was out of quiet preparation. The humiliation didn't break her, it woke her up. In that silence, she discovered a side of herself she didn't know existed, calm, controlled, and fierce. A woman capable of burning the entire house down without lighting a single match. Just by walking out of the door, the humiliation became her strength, because it made her see the truth she had been avoiding. She was alone in her marriage. She was married to a man who wasn't even brave enough to defend her dignity. And once she accepted that truth, she stopped begging for love and started choosing self-respect. That night, instead of crying on the bathroom floor as she had done before, she looked in the mirror and asked herself, "Why am I allowing this?" And for the first time, she didn't have an excuse to stay. Not love, not family, not fear. Nothing. The hurt didn't make her weak, it made her dangerous in the most graceful way possible. She decided she would never again allow anyone to make her feel small. From that silent moment of humiliation grew a powerful decision, one that would change everything. That is where her strength began, not in shouting or arguing, but in knowing her worth, walking away from disrespect, and choosing herself. She didn't break plates, scream, or throw accusations into the air. She did something far more powerful. Nothing. That night, after everyone went to sleep, silence filled the house, but inside her chest, something louder was happening. It was resolve. Revenge didn't come to her like fire. It came like still water, cold and clear. She walked into the kitchen, wiped her hands dry, and instead of crying like she used to, she picked up her phone. No hesitation, no trembling. She dialed her lawyer's number. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, as she said, "I'm ready. Start the papers." That was it. No dramatic speech, no tears. Just a quiet, calculated decision. That silence was her power. The world teaches women to endure, to wait for love to return, to hope for change. But that night, she stopped waiting. She didn't throw insults back at her mother-in-law. She didn't ask her husband why he laughed. She didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her wounded. Instead, she gave them the most terrifying answer: calmness. She cooked dinner like usual. She set the plates on the table. She spoke softly, every word measured, but her mind was already miles away, planning her escape, building her freedom. Every minute she spent in that house after making the call was part of her strategy. She served them tea with steady hands, but inside, she was already gone. She watched her husband scroll mindlessly on his phone, unaware that his life was about to change forever. He believed her silence was acceptance. He thought her quietness meant weakness. What he didn't know was that quiet women don't stay quiet forever. Sometimes, they're just writing the final chapter. When she slipped into bed that night, she didn't lie next to him as a wife. She lay there as a woman preparing for war. Not with weapons or words, but with signatures, legal documents, and evidence of every sacrifice she made. She didn't sleep much. She stared at the ceiling, not thinking about how much it hurt, but about what life would look like once she walked out of that door and never came back. That is what makes her revenge different. It wasn't about making him cry. It was about making herself free. The following morning, everything in the house looked the same, but she wasn't the same. Her feet touched the floor differently, lighter, stronger. She made breakfast one last time, not out of love, but out of closure. She wanted to remember this moment, the last time she served people who never saw her as anything more than a maid. She waited for his question. It came right on time. "What's wrong with you today?" He asked casually, like he hadn't broken her heart the night before. She smiled gently and said, "Nothing." But soon, everything will be different. That was the essence of her revenge, quiet, sharp, and perfectly timed. She didn't slam the door. She didn't yell. Instead, she left an envelope by his coffee. Inside were divorce papers, evidence of betrayal, and legal demands that would shake the ground beneath his feet. He looked at her in disbelief, not understanding how she held so much silence the night before, only to return with thunder in the morning. But that's how real revenge works. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It served not with rage, but with unshakable calm. It's when she chooses dignity over chaos. She didn't fight for his love. She fought for her freedom, and she won, not by hurting him, but by choosing herself. She once believed that love was enough, that if she kept giving, forgiving, and staying quiet, one day she would be valued. She thought marriage meant sacrifice, compromise, and patience. But patience without respect is just slow heartbreak. That night, when her husband laughed while his mother called her a maid, something inside her shattered. But instead of breaking down, she woke up. She realized that love without respect isn't love at all. It's captivity dressed up as loyalty. And from that realization was born her greatest decision, choosing self-respect over a relationship that made her feel invisible. She sat alone in the dark that night, not as a wife, but as a woman finally understanding her own worth. She thought about the promises she made on her wedding day, promises she kept, even when he didn't. She had stood by him when he had nothing, supported him when he struggled, and built a home from scratch with her hands and heart. But in return, he gave her silence when she was insulted, laughter when she was humiliated, and indifference when she needed protection. Was that love? No. Love protects. Love respects. Love never watches you break and laughs. So she made a choice. Maybe the hardest choice of her life, but the most necessary. She chose herself. She chose to walk away from the man she once loved, from the home she built, from the future she dreamed of. Because staying would mean losing herself completely. She understood that if a marriage requires you to shrink, apologize for your existence, or bear disrespect silently, then it isn't a marriage, it's a cage, and she refused to stay trapped. She didn't hate him, and that's what made her decision even more powerful. Because leaving isn't only about anger. Sometimes it's about love, self-love, the kind she had forgotten about while taking care of everyone else. She used to think that saving her marriage meant saving herself, but now she knew saving herself meant letting the marriage go. She no longer wanted his apologies, his excuses, or his promises to change. Words meant nothing now. She wanted her dignity back. Respect is not bought with silence or earned through suffering. Respect is a basic right, and when it is denied, walking away is not betrayal, it is survival. She realized that being alone was less painful than being with someone who made her feel lonely every day. For years, she kept hoping he would see her, choose her, defend her. But his loyalty was always to his comfort, never to her feelings. And she refused to keep begging for the bare minimum. The strength she found wasn't loud, it was quiet. It came in small decisions, choosing not to argue, choosing to call her lawyer instead of crying, choosing to sleep peacefully rather than wait for an apology that would never come. Her strength came from finally believing she deserved more than occasional kindness and constant disrespect. She deserved love that didn't need to be earned through suffering. As she packed her belongings, her hands didn't shake. Because she was no longer walking away from a life. She was walking towards herself. She thought of the girl she used to be before marriage, full of dreams, laughter, and confidence. She didn't know where she would go or how she would start over, but for the first time in years, the future didn't scare her. Staying scared her more. People might say she gave up. But the truth is, she refused to give up on herself any longer. Love didn't leave her. She left love that no longer felt like love. She didn't walk away to teach him a lesson. She walked away because she finally learned herself. Respect is worth more than any relationship. And once a woman chooses herself, no one can ever call her the maid again. Revenge didn't come to her in the form of shouting, slamming doors, or throwing accusations in anger. It came quietly, in the form of a goodbye. The most powerful revenge she delivered was not meant to hurt him. It was meant to heal herself. The next morning, she moved with grace, not rage. She laid breakfast on the table like she always did. She poured his coffee not with love, but with finality. And then she placed the envelope beside it. Divorce papers, her last words written without ink or voice. That was her revenge, not to destroy him, but to leave him. As he opened the envelope and realized what it contained, the world around him did not explode. No dramatic scene unfolded. But something inside him broke in complete silence. For the first time, he saw that she wasn't joking. She wasn't bluffing. She was done. His mother watched from the doorway, speechless. The same woman who used to order her around, call her a maid, and dismiss her emotions now stood frozen, because the person they thought would stay forever had chosen to walk away. She didn't yell. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply stepped back, looked around at the home she had built, and decided this would be the last time she stood there as someone who was taken for granted. The most painful and beautiful kind of revenge is leaving people alone with the weight of their own actions. She gave that to them. She didn't try to make them regret it through words. She let the empty chair at the dinner table speak for her. Walking toward the door, she didn't feel weak. Her steps felt lighter than ever before. Each one carried years of pain leaving her body. She wasn't leaving for another man or for a new life waiting somewhere. She was leaving for herself. To reclaim the pieces of her soul that she had given away, little by little, for love that never guarded her. The silence of that moment was more powerful than any argument she could have made. When he finally found his voice and asked, trembling, "Why are you doing this?" she looked at him, not with hatred, but with clarity. Because you showed me what I am to you. Now I'll show you what life is without me. Those words were not a threat. They were a promise. A promise that she would no longer be the woman who waited for respect. She would be the woman who walked away when it wasn't given. His mother, the woman who once held all the power in that house, realized she could no longer control her. No more orders, no more insults, no more silent obedience. Their power ended the moment she chose to leave. She didn't break the family. They broke it when they broke her spirit. She just signed the final chapter. Outside the house, the air felt different. It was the same sky, the same road, but she was no longer the same woman. She breathed in, and it felt like the first breath of her life. She didn't know what the future would hold. Loneliness, healing, rebuilding, but at least it would be hers. Not borrowed, not controlled, not insulted, hers. That was her revenge, not fire, not chaos, but peace. She didn't want them to suffer. She wanted them to understand. And they did, when they sat at the table that evening and realized the food tasted different. The house felt colder, and the laughter that once filled the room had turned into silence. Silence she left behind, not as a wound, but as a reminder. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply leaving and never looking back.